leaders of countries seem to be, you know, pseudo-actors at the moment. I mean, it's all this kind of spin and gloss, and they seem to be eloquent speakers and this, that, and the other. And it's more like, it's a bit like X Factor, you know. It's a bit like, do the public like them? I mean, if you know, I mean, I don't know if you have the time to watch these things like X Factor and all this type of stuff.
I was watching it last night.
And you find that, and Simply Come Dancing and all that type of thing, and you find what happens is the public vote not for the person who is technically good at what the program's supposed to be about. They vote for the person who they like the most, right? Now, do you find that rubs off in politics also? Do
you not think talent comes through in the end, though? Because the most successful people in the end are the
but
people that got the most talent.
You see, it's too late sometimes. I mean, at the end of the day, if we go back to the X Factor,
but you're really tough on The Apprentice. You choose the best person.
I do. But that's because it's my choice. So it's not the public voting.
I know, but the public usually goes along with you.
You see, and you made a great point just now. Don't you think that the talent comes through in the end? You've got one-time opportunity when you put yourself up for election. If your face is not the right face, and if what you say is not the right face, the wrong person can get voted in. You never get the opportunity of showing your talent, do you?
Well, I think you know, these are serious times, and they do need serious people and serious decisions.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I think people do understand that. You know, if it wasn't a serious time, people would say, well, you know, let's look at this and that and everything else, and if there's something he's done wrong, then let's punish him for it. But I think when you're in serious times, when people know these are unprecedented conditions, I think people do respect the fact that you've got people who are sort of turning their mind all the time to getting the problem sorted out.
Don't you think it's a sad state of affairs that politicians, not just in this country but in other countries, have voted on what the public think about them personally, how they smile, how they look, how they talk, and all that type of stuff? Isn't that dangerous?
I think that's changing a bit. I think that is changing, because I think people are looking at the world and saying, terrorism India, and they're looking at the world and they're saying mortgages, looking at the world and they're saying climate change, what a problem, looking at the world and saying, you know, all these difficulties, law and order, and so we do need serious people to deal with these problems, and we can't just have people that are just spinning a line. You've got to have people that are actually taking the problem seriously.
So shortly after you became Prime Minister, there was this talk of would there be an election, won't there be an election, and all this type of stuff, which I'm sure you're sick and tired of discussing. I personally sympathise with maybe the thoughts that were in your mind. I don't have to make a decision. I want to think about something, but unfortunately maybe some of the external influences like media and all this type of stuff built it up. I could quite understand it, but that kind of set a path of indecisiveness.
Yeah, but I always wanted to get on with the job, and obviously when people put to you a proposition, should you do this or that, you look at it.
You want to think about it.
But I was always wanting to get on with the job, and that's what we were doing last year. But the problem last year was that people were seeing petrol prices, they were seeing food prices going up, they were seeing the electricity bill, the gas bill, and people's standard of living was really hit last year. And I understand people's frustrations about that.
Now, that's why in recent times, quite clearly, your popularity has gone up again, because on the financial crisis, you have been very decisive. And that's because, I suppose, you are an economist, and therefore you've recognised things, and you moved in, moved fast, sorted it out, and no one can complain at the way you've
But last year, I thought we were dealing with the big decisions. You know, we made the big decision on nuclear power, on Europe, on education to 18, apprenticeships, planning. We made all these big decisions. We didn't succeed in getting the 42 days for terrorism, which I thought was important to protecting ourselves against terrorists. But we did make big decisions. But underpinning everything we were doing last year was people, you know, you'd see someone going to the petrol station and they'd be shaking their heads when they saw the price of petrol. And the oil price had trebled. It was outrageous what had happened, and we had to try and get that oil price down.
Well, there you are, straying off the subject, because back onto economy again. I'm trying to discuss with you some personal issues. The thing is, you're under constant pressure all the time. Don't you ever feel like telling someone to, you know, clear off? I don't know how you've got the patience or restraint of temper. I mean, someone like me, I mean, I would be whacking them quite
Would you?
frankly. Yeah, I really would,
Well,
yeah.
you know, I said to Sarah after the first 3 months, you know, when we had terrorism, we had foot and mouth, we had avian flu, and then we had the start of the financial crisis, that, well, look, you know, we've dealt with all these things as best we can, and I don't think people will forget that. And actually, then you had a year when people were sort of saying, oh, he's done that wrong, and that wrong. And it does make you think, but if you're sure what you're doing, you keep going. You mustn't stop listening to people. And you mustn't stop learning from what people tell you. And you and others, you know, have got great advice to give me. But you've got to be sure that what you're doing right. And I'm trying to build a Britain that is a Britain where people's aspirations and ambitions can actually be realised. And we've got to get through these difficult times. But I'm pretty sure, you know, from going around the world and talking to these other countries, that we are actually well positioned for the next period of time, not badly positioned.
I've often found that if something in my personal life is really a problem, God forbid someone's ill or something like that, or there's an issue somewhere, I personally do take my eye off the ball in business. Now, money's not everything, as you know, so it doesn't matter if I take my eye off the ball until I sort out the most important things in my life, which are the personal things and family. How can you cope with that? How can you split your mind in half when you've got the country's economy there and then you've got some personal problems?
I mean, it is a terrible blow when something goes wrong, when you lose someone, or at the same time someone is very ill, and you've got to fight back from that. And I think sometimes actually getting back to work is the best way to do it. And you never forget these things, that they're really part of everything you are. But I think in a way, working your way through it is probably the best way to deal with problems. You know, you may not work as well as you should, but I think it makes you realise there are things that are worth doing, and you know, that's how you get through it. I think.
Yeah, I can agree with that, but it must be very difficult when you've got the responsibility of the country really on your shoulders. Whereas in my simple case, if God forbid I was in a situation similar to yours, the worst that's going to happen to me is my business is just going to suffer for a bit. Who cares? It's money. But
well, you know. Sarah and I decided that that, you know, we would, when our daughter died, we'd set up a charity to try and help other people who were in the same situation. Yeah, and she actually has done almost all of the work herself and worked with other people to do so. But you find a way of saying, well, out of this sadness or tragedy, you know, can something good come out of it? But then I think you've got to get on with your life and make sure that you can do the things that you can help people by doing.